Welcome to the Veza Digital podcast. Tune in as we delve into the digital world of entrepreneurship and uncover the strategies and tactics of successful online business leaders. I'm super happy to welcome our guest, Arne Peder Blix, who is a principal at Acca Invest Norway, the Chairman of CORPRT ThinkTank, the CEO of Acca Invest AS, a board member at SoftSeaweed, and the co-founder of Upstock. Arne was an officer at the Royal Norwegian Navy and has over 20 years of experience as a CEO within tech companies. In this episode, he's going to share some of the biggest lessons learned under high-stress situations, from leading submarine crew to leading tech and climate action projects, operating in high-stakes environments today. So I welcome you. Thank you for being here, Arne.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So Arne is in Oslo, Norway right now, and I understand there's a lot of snow and it's cold. That's why he's got the big jacket on. So one of the things I always like to get into is entrepreneurship and how one went through some struggles as a child and what, generally speaking, successful people go through to basically start a business or become an entrepreneur. And there's always a reason why you do it initially. And I think that changes as we get older and we get wiser. So I guess one of the first questions is, what led you to go on the path of entrepreneurship?
Oh, a bit of mix of chance and fortune and understanding and opportunity, I guess, and seeking a bit of an adventure, I guess. So as a former naval officer, the Cold War at that time was ending, and I was looking to transcend into business life. And typically coming from Navy, it became the shipping industry in Norway. And I was working in a very conform business then at the DNV, the Norske Veritas Classification Society, and then as a lobbyist in the Shipowner Association in the UN and as a trader. And then the IT bubble bursted and 9/11 crashed the market so at, in 2001, 2002, the world was a bit strange place, and strange times gives opportunity. So I moved back to Norway and we started a fintech, very counter-cyclical to anything. And this was around equity-based incentives, accounting, valuation, and disclosure. And it was just that I met passionate people with a good idea, a good plan. And I came in as the head of sales, business development, co-founder type of guy. And so a bit of a mix of having an open mind to see opportunity and being risk willing enough to take that opportunity.
Okay, that's great. So what's one thing that you would have known before you started your whole career? Like, if there's one thing you can think about and say, man, I shouldn't have done this. Can you think of something like that?
Well, you forget to divide the time, to multiply the time with the euro number, 2.7 something. And you forget to think that things normally also cost pi more than you think. In short, things take longer time, much longer time than you think. And it takes 7-10 years at least to build a business up to, the point where you can either sell it or you can transcend into a different new stage. So it takes a much longer time, and it's more turbulent than you think.
Right. And what would you say was your? I understand you had several exits and different companies. What was your, you would say, most successful one? Can you walk us through some of the, how you started and maybe some of the challenges initially, and then maybe through the exit and different challenges you had in there? I think a lot of the viewers today, a lot of our clients at Veza Digital are in that category where they have their company running, and they're trying to scale, and they are scaling, and they're looking to exit, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? So is there a story maybe that you have that you can think of where, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, or something interesting that you can think of? I'm sure you have many.
Well, exactly. Then in 2002, we started this business, and they had been giving it some thought 3 years prior to do a software as a service fintech. But there was no software as a service at that time. It was install base. So we were one of the first software as a service fintech companies, because that was the time when you started to actually deliver things on active service pages, or ASP, if you like, and then as a browser-based service. And the first year, my founder got cancer again and couldn't work. The second year, my CTO, his son, got very sick. And from the 4 starting, all of a sudden, there was almost only me there for a while, running a lot of things that I didn't know how to do, but you just have to, because you've already. We were very early of getting clients. So we already, in the second, third year of operation, we had 10 public companies as our clients, and you just can't disappoint them. Then you're finished. So you just have to make do. And then in 2009, we had 80% of the listed companies in Norway as our clients, and had started to move into the Nordic countries. And we got Deutsche Bank as a client. At that time, we were 9 employees.
Wow.
And for business critical software for Deutsche Bank, not just for them, but for their clients to deliver this sort of service. It took a lot of convincing and a lot of personal relation to bridge the trust, because we were too small. We were too small as a business. We had not enough people. So all of the risk and compliance people at Deutsche Bank, of course, they thought, we can't do this. So we were able to convince the decision makers still that they could trust us. And that was more of a personal relation B2B sale. You're not going to lose your job if you trust me to deliver that we can deliver but that's really CEO to CEO, or to managing director in this case, within Deutsche Bank. And that was a big breakthrough, of course. And then we got several other banks on board, and a lot of the growth that happened then, we had several opportunities to sell the business or to take money in, but we never did. We were bootstrapped the whole way. Maybe what would have happened if we took venture capital? What would have happened if we moved to the US and continued building the business there instead of in Norway? Would the business have been 5 or 10 times bigger? Maybe. I don't know. Eventually, I stepped down in 2013 after 10 years as CEO, focusing on selling or getting the next stage of the business, because it's very, very hard to raise capital and build a business at that speed at the same time. And we had several failed attempts, and I was getting tired. That's also something you learn over time as a founder or a co-founder in this case for me, to balance your life a bit better. I had 2 kids over this period, whom I barely knew because I had 150 days travel per year. So, and then we sold it first time 2015. And in a growth model to a private equity firm, we created Equatex, and then that company was sold to Computershare in 2018. So it was quite a ride. The last 5 years, I was not part of the operational business. I was more on the strategy and planning my own exit and starting my own investment company and my own investment portfolio. So it was very busy years.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's my biggest achievement to date. And then I thought I was going to do it again, and I invested in Upstock and a lot of the other Dry Lab and a lot of the other companies as co-founder typically, and thought, yes, I'll do it again. And none of them have crashed. But none of them have gone exactly as planned either. Some are doing really well, are about to list on stock exchange, IPO, and others are more going sideways. But in the meantime, we've had some tough years. The last 3-4 years for everyone has been tough. So, and then I could tell you a lot of stories about that. But I think that's the biggest one so far, and it taught me a lot.
Right. Well, I think that's amazing. I think one of the dreams that entrepreneurs have is I'm gonna start my company or start 3 companies. I'm gonna exit them all. I'm gonna make $100 million, and then I'm just gonna sit back, relax, and invest into 50 different startups. Right? I mean, that's the dream scenario that people always talk about. Right? Now, it's really cool to talk to somebody like you because you obviously are in that space. So if you had to, I don't want to say do it again, but what would you do different with an exit in terms of moving to the next stage? In other words, you've put in your work, you've done the 80 hours a week for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, and now you just want to sit back, relax in a big plush chair and be the guy that directs all the different things, right? And that's not really reality, right? So what would you say to somebody that is in maybe they're pre-exit, and they had this dream about doing exactly that? Like, would you take a year off, 2 years off, 3 years off? Would you focus on maybe 3 companies, 10 companies? Would you take that capital and invest it into something else that will give you fulfillment, so to speak, right? Because retirement doesn't exist for us. We're guys that want to work and never retire, because if we do, we might as well jump off a bridge. So it's something that we need to do. It's inside of us. It's we're driven by something. Initially money, and eventually it's a purpose. It's a mission. So can you speak a little bit about that post-exit anxiety, I suppose, that you have,
Well, it is a very good question, and I wish I had been asked this question earlier, or had listened to someone else answer this question earlier, because, I truly made a couple of mistakes. I can say that now. It's 7 years, almost 8 years since my exit in 2015, and you should have thought that I had planned it better, what I was going to do when the exit actually happened. So I bought a house and etc. and did it up, and so the family was happy and etc. But what I did, which was, I think, a bit of a mistake, is I stretched too far. I went into 10 different investments, still, having the mindset of everything is possible, and the confidence that I knew I could do it. So I was overconfident, and I invested in too many. And everything was looking super, but some of these took an unexpected turn. And, some companies can be easy to run for 5 years, and then the 6th year, they become, a total energy drain, 24/7 rescue mission. And this happened with I invested in a company called Nea Wallet, which I knew fintech. I understood the technology. It was open loop, complying to MasterCard, Visa Card Dynamics standards, and it was really looking great. But what I didn't think of was most investors don't see this. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of wallet companies out there. So it became impossible to fund it further. Unexpected, right team, right technology, wrong timing. So there's a lot of new things I didn't know, because I didn't have experience as an investor. And all of a sudden I go in and invest in 10 companies. And that was a bit hot-headed. And it became much more heavy. So you should invest less than, I took basically half off the table and then invested the other half. Don't do that. Take 80% off the table and then 100%. And don't go 10, go 5 or 4 or 3. Focus your energy. And then your life will be better, not as stressful as mine, and you will sleep more than I did in 2015, 16, 17, 18. Now, because I didn't sleep so much during those years, none of those companies went bankrupt. But it's because when things get tough, you just have to put in the hours and do the work. And in retrospect, I would urge people who see this podcast, plan better, calm down, take a bit of maybe half a year off and think about and plan it. I didn't do that so much, and that's what I would have done differently.
Right. Well, that's amazing advice. I think that applying the 80-20 principle with everything in life really can help and get rid of some of the headaches and whatnot. I think it's a very interesting point what we just talked about, and it's fascinating to see entrepreneurs in whatever space have that mindset. And I think with this wisdom, you can save millions of dollars and thousands of hours of work and sleepless nights and all this kind of thing. I want to know what if you can think of 3 people that have been most influential in your life. Somebody like a mentor, maybe a relative, or even historical person. So can you think of a few people that really guided you in terms of who you are and who you wanted to be?
Historical person is easy. I've always been a fan of Churchill. Winston Churchill, not all the cigars and the champagne and whatnot, but the fact that he was able to turn an impossible situation around and had to make impossible decisions with very little information. And as a submarine driver, as a skier in the outback, and I've also been flying planes for a hobby, sailplanes, and in the mountains on skis and wheels and floats. It's all about your ability to evaluate situations and make decisions with a limited amount of information. And that's leadership, and it's loneliness, and that's the same thing in many cases. So that's number 1. Number 2, I've had the pleasure. Well, my father was sick with MS before I was born, even. So I never grew up with an able guy who could go out like I will do today, skiing with my kids. So there was no mentor there. My uncle was a bit of a successful American dream, moved over there and did a big career there. So somewhat, but because of this lack of a father figure, I've always been sort of chasing people to listen to and to ask questions. And this is not just from the Navy time, but also later on. I've always worked with CEO bosses who have been 15, 20 plus years older than me. This is also the case today. The founder and chairman of Acca Invest, the company I today run, he is 20 years older than me. And the board is also 20 years older than me, almost in average. And so I always have had the pleasure of a network of 5, 7, 10 people around me with close connections where there would be a natural exchange of maybe energy and whatever I can offer and experience from their side. And I would ask questions and get and be able to have a dialogue about difficult situations. And without that network of people to call, and actually a big network in this case, of people to call with different skill sets for different problems. So I would call different people for different periods or different challenges I'm facing, I wouldn't have a chance. So I think that would be the second answer. And the third one would be there are people who also here in Norway who have been very successful on doing exactly what I've been trying to do, who are 5 years, 7 years ahead of me. One of them is my cousin. Another of them is a former Navy officer who has a very similar career to, or you can at least compare it to mine. So I've been looking at, some of these as, well, I wouldn't want to become them, but I can see what they've done, and I would want to do something slightly similar, but also slightly different in my own way. But they would be examples to sort of follow. Yes.
That's amazing. I think one of the things that is a shortcut in business life is to get mentors. And I think a lot of people are scared to ask for help, especially guys that, perceive it as a weakness, right? And I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's a strength when you ask people about, hey, what did you do in this situation? And I'm feeling this way and I'm getting overwhelmed and all this kind of thing. And getting mentors is probably one of the most important things that I can think of to help myself, obviously, move ahead. And it doesn't have to even be business. It can just be in life. We all have to go through hardships and different things. And I think that is so important, especially now, I believe, with the technology and the addiction to social media and whatnot. I think we really have to make a much bigger effort, especially the younger generation, to go out there and meet people and talk to people and join groups and be social. I think business and life is about being social and being successful at being social, and not online social, but face to face. Even though we're obviously using technology right now, we're on different sides of the world, so there's the positives. But I think it's very important to not forget to meet your posse, to meet your tribe, to have the people around you that you go skiing with, you go play football, whatever the case may be. I think psychologically it's one of those really, really important things. So I love your story. I think many people try to please their father, and chase something that doesn't exist, and then one day you realize there's nothing to chase, right? I have to become comfortable in my own skin, So I'm really curious about some of your ventures that you kind of see moving forward. I know that you used to chase probably financial freedom, and my guess is that now you're probably chasing something different. Can you talk a little bit about what are you chasing now?
Yeah, it's so I've always been a bit of a deep thinker. I guess when you're on a submarine, you become that. You have to play chess. You have to think ahead. You have to understand the risk and the domain you are in. And I've always tried, and I've always been on the side of David in the David Goliath. So always, when we did equity-based incentives, it was about balancing the relationship between the owner, employer, and the employees. And a lot of the other friend is about privacy and ownership of data, which has been important and it still is very important and very relevant. So all of my portfolio companies have been about more than just the money, because if it's not more than just the money, you won't put in the extra hours. It will be more difficult to motivate you. But if it's a bit flippant when people say, if you love what you do, you're not working, you have a hobby. It's kind of a mix, but it has to be all these things. And I left the energy industry as an oil and gas trader, petrochemical gas in Houston in 2002 when the market crashed after 9/11, etc. And also because I felt that it was not a sustainable industry, not earth positive. And I'm an earth positive guy. I'm a skier, I'm an outdoor person, I love nature, all these things. Norwegians do, and me very much so. So now, 2 years ago, I was offered the chance of moving into this direction again. And as of 1st of January 2022, I took on this job as the CEO for CL Invest, which is an investment company. It's like a venture capital firm, hands-on, that invests in immediate climate action. So emission reduction projects servicing energy companies in emerging countries. So we have office in Nigeria, Lagos. We have office that I'm building up in Iraq. So I'm actually going to Iraq in 4 hours this afternoon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To Erbil and then to Baghdad. And we have a lot of projects in Central Asia, and all of the more challenging countries where most people don't find it natural to take a vacation or natural to go at all because of risks or whatever. That is now my playfield. And the reason for this choice is it's a Kinder egg, it is meaningful. It's very difficult and challenging, so very few can do it or want to do it. And it has to be profitable, because if it's not profitable, it won't work. Because in getting people to do what you would say is Mother Earth friendly, nature friendly things is not necessarily something people or organizations will do unless they also make money. So you have to make it profitable to reduce emissions, CO2 and CO2 equivalent. And we are particularly chasing methane. Methane is 84 times worse than CO2 in a 20-year time frame. And as most probably people know these days, the 20 next years will be the most important in our global challenge of reducing emissions quickly enough so that our children, grandchildren, etc. can go skiing, for example.
Right. So that kind of sparks a question for me. Like, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about that industry? So you talked about global emissions, and I mean, there's two camps. There's the camp of it doesn't exist, and then there's the camp that's a little bit on the completely other side, and it's like we're all going to die in 2 years. What do you think is the biggest misconception that you can see in that whole space?
Oh, that's a huge one, and luckily there are scientists in the UNFCCC and etc. that I can leave to explain why scientists believe we have a problem. But if you look on, we have gone through a pandemic now, and all of the world have been looking at exponential curves. And I'm drawing it this way because that's what you will. We've been all looking at R numbers and exponential growth. And if you look at exponential growth of CO2 parts per million in the atmosphere, historic, and we can measure this in old ice in Antarctica, in glaciers, and you can see what was the ppm back in this, and is it the human activity, is it solar activity? Then you can look at population on the planet for the last 3, 4, 5,000 years, and you will see the same elliptic curve. And I would say I'm not necessarily a betting man, but I'm math and numbers they come easy to me, and I see patterns, and I would say, yeah, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that there might be a correlation here. So in any case, it's probably good to stop some of these emissions for XYZ purposes. There's benzene, there's low ground level ozone, there's a lot of other stuff which is bad. So for me, if I'm 80% right or 90% right or 70% right, it's the right direction. And if I can also make it profitable to be more energy efficient, because we're shutting down emissions from existing infrastructure And it's the existing infrastructure we can really do something about. We're not helping anyone building new infrastructure. We're not helping anyone finding more hydrocarbons. We're only helping to reduce emissions from existing productions. So
Right.
I can sleep well with this, and I can live well with myself, and I feel that I'm contributing in the right direction.
Right. Well, that's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, for myself, I love traveling around the world, and just like you, I love some of the more obscure places as well. You know, I'm planning a trip to Iran within this year, and a couple of different places that, you know, people don't want to go to, but, you know, there's humans living everywhere, and they live a life of interesting happenings, I suppose. And I'm fascinated with different cultures and different things. So that's super cool. Talk about maybe technology. Like, how do you personally utilize technology, or how would you like to utilize it in the next 2-3 years? Like, can you think of some examples that are going to help you in your next endeavors?
Well, in work-wise, I have been a fan of the distributed ledger technology, also known as blockchain, since the inception. I come from fintech, so I do understand distributed databases, etc. I've even tried my own ICO once, so I would say I understand these things, but from technology business perspective, I don't code much anymore, and I was never a good one. I did Turbo Pascal in 1990 up to 1994, in what I do today for verification, monitoring, and reporting purposes, for sure, blockchain has a bright future, I think, but it will take long time for adoption. When it comes to myself, I still like physical books when I read them. I'm slowly reading a bit more on a pad or a digital surface. I have no shares in Remarkable, but I can say Remarkable is a remarkable tool, which is actually helping you think better, because you write down, and I could probably get some. This is free marketing, but it's really, find smart ways to work more efficient, and then also try. Even though I'm not a big Microsoft fan, I do like the fact that they're, in my business today, I have to use tools which are used by most of the international oil companies, energy companies, national energy companies, and independents. And so there's a lot of Microsoft business software out there. But it has started to tell me in Microsoft Viva how much time I spend on different behaviors. And that awareness, I think, is important, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think we all should start to measure a bit and be aware how much time are we actually spending per day on our phone, in Facebook, in Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever the tool is. How much mail? When do I do it? Is that smart? Should I do it like this? Maybe I should do it a different way. And this is about sleeping patterns. It's about focused time, non-focused time. And it's really about balance. And for someone like me, and if you go on clinvest.com, you will see what we're doing. You will understand I am in the front line. I'm managing a company which is in the front line of immediate climate action in the most challenging environments on the planet. It's risk, 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 risk all the time. And unless you then have some tools around you to try to figure out if you are balancing so you can decompress. That means also workout. One of the smartest thing I did last year was I took a digital, wonderful Anna mental coach, mind shifter coach. Find someone to talk to. Find that person who can doesn't matter if she or he is young or old, but talk to someone who can help you think a bit about how do you manage your energy, your life, your health. And she helped me prepare for this. And since I've been doing PT, and it gets done. It's not cheap, but I do it every 2 times a week. No mercy. 6 a.m. at Tuesdays and Thursdays. No exceptions. No excuses. And unless you have something like this to really balance you and decompress you, you will burn out. You won't be at your top game. So I think using technology to try to help me manage myself better is probably the answer.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to mental health and being able, when you say balance work with your mental health, it is, I think, going to be even more important in the next 5, 10, 20 years to be able to make sure your mental health is really at par, and whether that includes working out or meditating and whatnot. And you have to have something that you do every single day, and you have to be very disciplined about it. Discipline is what it's all about. So I agree with you. That's fantastic. Great points. We're going to wrap it up here soon. I know you have to go to Iraq. If you were in my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Whoa! I wish I had more time to think about that, but
I know I put you on the spot, but maybe something that you thought about before the podcast, or something that maybe came up while we were talking, and something, maybe it can be something silly. You got it already.
I think I have it. What do you consider to be your superpower? Most people have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 superpowers. What do you consider to be your superpower? That would probably be the question.
Right. So what is your superpower?
To connect at a fairly deep level very quickly with other human beings. And this is about communication and the ability to create an environment of trust between people. And it has to be real. You can't fake this. It has to be real. And I think already now, listeners, yourself, you understand what I just did and how I just said it. It's about brutal honesty, and it's about sincerity and being genuine. And for good and bad, of course, I also have things I need to be better at, etc. I'm not perfect, but that to be able to create that connection, I hope it is, and I am trying to nurture it so that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I think that connection with other human beings is so important, and I think that some people have it naturally. I think us older guys, we probably lived in an era where it was more important. I think now there has to be more of a conscious thing. But at the end of the day, it's all about human connections, and I agree with you. That's it. And final and last question is, what does freedom mean to you now that you've gone through all the exits and you've done your service for your country and you've skied around the world, probably, I imagine. What does freedom really mean to you?
I think it's the ability to continue to put yourself in situations where you get to learn more of what you want to know more about. And that is, in other words, the freedom to get close to and choose or influence which people of quality can influence you. Because you are and you become some sort of a reflection or mix of the people you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with great people, you're on a good path. If you surround yourself with not so great people, you're on a different path. And I think freedom is the ability to put yourself in situations where you can surround yourself with attract employees, colleagues, board members, network, mentors, etc. of quality, then you're on a good path.
That's awesome. I agree with you 100%. So where can people find you or your latest project? So that'll be the last thing. It'll be in the podcast notes, but maybe you can just give a little plug here for you.
Yeah, well, and we didn't mention WeMe Facilitators. I'm also a board member there, which is also about coaching and the software as a service platform for coaching, which is something you can check out.
Sure.
I'm on LinkedIn. I try to keep my LinkedIn fairly updated. That's also an easy way to contact me. CL-invest.com is the investment company for immediate climate action. And I suspect you will see much more of that. There are big news coming up very soon about this company. And I found my mission for the foreseeable future. So you'll see me mostly there. I don't have other social media that I have time for. And I'm contemplating leaving Facebook for the third time, maybe for good.
You and everybody else.
Well, sorry for throwing that in there, but it's also meaningful for networking, for managing kids and all of that. But yeah, more hopefully less digital, more in person. But this was very nice. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Arne. That was wonderful. Thank you.